Welcome to the Old Mac Gang podcast, or just simply OMG, a podcast with a panel of longtime Apple Mac users who want to discuss the most relevant apps and services to age-seasoned users. I'm Marty Gensius, an Apple enthusiast and podcaster. I'm a 67-year-old age-seasoned user. I'm not going to tell you, but I'm going to turn 68 sometime soon. And I've collected a great group of friends to talk about Apple and the seasoned citizens who use Apple products. Today's topic is we're going to talk about selecting your web browser and what web browsers we've selected. And we're going to go a little further and say, do we have any plugins that we really use or in our web browsers? And we'll show you some of those that we've got set up. So let's see who we have with our panel today.
Hey, I'm Chris. I'm 78 years old. I'm a retiree in Tucson, Arizona. I'm a member of the Tucson Macintosh user group. I've been around the Mac since 1984 and currently using most of the current stuff and enjoying it every day.
I'm Peter. I'm 72 and from Bay Village, where I met Marty and Gary through the Northeast Ohio Apple Club. Although I've used a variety of computers over my lifetime, I'm an Apple guy now. I love staying current when I can. I love learning from and sharing with others, and I especially love it with this old Mac gang.
Hi, I'm Bob, and I'm a longtime Mac user group member, now living in Tucson, and I am still in my 70s.
Okay. I'm curious because I didn't put this in the show notes, but I'm curious, did any of you look at Apple Care One at all? We talked a little bit about it last week. The idea of bundling. Okay. Yeah, Peter.
I looked at it. At the moment, it looks like it would save me $4 or $5, depending on how they give me some gift cards for stuff that I've already signed up for, some portion of a year's worth. And it's not clear to me whether they take, what hit they take off of that for terminating the plan early. I think it's 10% or $25, whichever is less. And I haven't figured that part out, but I probably will go for it.
Yeah, I didn't pay attention to the hit. I was looking at the monthly savings, and because I've got so many products, it worked out well for me. And I have so many of them covered under Apple Care Plus. I did have an issue this week because I got about $425 back from Apple. And my son Will is starting a new job. He's got one M1 Pro, MacBook Pro laptop that he takes from, what is going to be school now. He's starting as a teacher at Youngstown State, and he'll take that back and forth between his home and his work. And I'm like, son, it's time you get a desktop. So he's got a wedding coming up. He's going to need a new car. So there's a car payment coming up. There's just a lot of stuff going on. So I went ahead and took that $425 and got him a M4 Mac Mini. And he's got all the other pieces for it. The real problem I had was buying it online and getting that money that was available either for the App Store or available for the Apple Store for product to show up when I checked out. Long story short, I went through I got to my third person online who was taking me through this multiple times, and the same problems arose. It never showed up in my checkout. Then they finally figured out, well, I'm using my Apple ID to sign in, but I should be using my Apple app account ID to sign in. which is two different. They're two different things. I'm like, you'd solve this if you just put it under one ID. But finally, I got in, was able to get that money. It's not easy to figure out, even when you do that. But it managed to credit the account for the device that I was getting him. So, a word to the wise, if you've got some discount coming in any way from Apple, or even Apple cards that you put in, gift cards that you put in, make sure you're looking in the right account when you go ahead and use them. So, we'll just be careful with that. It took me a good 2 hours to get the thing sorted out online. So much longer than I usually spend online with Apple. We have, yeah, go ahead, Chris.
I had the same problem years ago. I created a different Apple ID so that work could pay for my Apple developer account. Well, I only did that for 1 or 2 years. I wish I'd never done it, because now I've got these two IDs. One is my developer ID and one is my regular one. And so I've approached Apple a number of times, and what I basically have found out is literally impossible to merge two different Apple IDs. And now there are legal reasons to boot, I guess. So can't be done. But a good idea for a purchase like this, I've run into this where I had money in the savings account. I didn't know how to get it to the Apple Cash Card or wherever it needed to be. Line up your money in advance before you even go online to make the purchase. That way, you'll be in the right account too.
Yeah, I was the reason I have two is because I had one ID for the longest time, still have it. I've had to change the password maybe a couple of times, but I still have it. And at some point in my Apple career over the last 25 years, I got a message from them saying you have to now create a separate ID for your app purchases. And that's why I have two of those, and who knows where the money goes. I didn't even see that as a login kind of Apple ID. I just saw it as an email address that was attached to my account, that it wasn't really a purchasing agent, that it was essentially, connected to my Apple card or whatever, that it was that I would use it to buy anything. I'd always use my Apple ID to buy product. So that's all that. Anyways, let's go on to what we're going to talk about: selecting your web browser, and I've got a few links in the show notes for people who want to look at comparisons of different web browsers, and at least what some folks say is much. And I think we just lost Bob because of thunder and power being out in his location. So we'll see when and if Bob comes back in. It might be a shorter show, but I've been getting messages from him through our chat that the power is out now with thunderstorms in his area. So let's go. Let's talk about these browsers. As I say, I've got 3 articles in there that are comparisons of web browsers. Any reactions for those of you who've looked at it? I thought they were fairly good articles with comparisons.
Thumbs up is what I say to those. They give you a lot of criteria by which to rate browsers. And I will say as a comment that there's a war between the browsers, and it's a continuing and ongoing war. And when one browser comes up with a nice idea like tab groups or something like that, it's not long before the other ones jump on board.
Yeah. It's I found these links and then I checked them out and thought it was for listeners or viewers who want more to know more about the drill down on each of these different browsers we'll talk about, and some browsers we aren't talking about. These are good articles to look at for comparisons. It might also get you a little more informed about a browser you might want to check out that you didn't know about. So go ahead and take a look at those if you have the opportunity. Again, the links for everything we talk about will be in the show notes, either in the video show notes or in the podcast show notes. So you can find the links there and then go to it. Some things to think about with browsers. You want to make sure it's integrated with your ecosystem. Safari is a great browser, but we don't see it on other non-Apple devices. And because of that, it doesn't fit in with that ecosystem. Which ones have good performance and efficiency? Safari rates very high with that. Chrome is really a RAM hog and a battery hog, but it is an element that we all, at least in my case, I have to deal with. We'll talk about that. Privacy and tracking protection is also very important for folks to make sure that your data is not being used or sold, and Safari is the best in doing that. Firefox and Brave also offer good privacy tools. And there are other things like advanced tools and AI tools. Edge includes Copilot. Again, that data is being used for information that you don't have much control over. Opera and Aria AI, VPN, and other have a VPN and other extras. Arc, which is now changed, I think it's Dia, and Zen are modern browsers with UI ideas. Vivaldi is good for customization and simplicity. And there are ways that you can switch your browsers. You often get asked if you want to do that. When you start to open a new browser, it's like, do you want to open all your tabs in your browser? So you'll get that. And you can also go into System Settings General and also find ways to switch to make certain browsers your default browsers. Any general comments, guys, before we delve into our questions? Yeah, Chris.
Oh, I was going to start with question one, actually. But I've always been, I was a Safari user originally, and then Firefox came along. We're going over a number of years here, and I really like Firefox a lot. And then DuckDuckGo came along, and I hadn't really separated search engine from browser in my mind. Okay, so I'll come back to that in a minute. But so I like the DuckDuckGo browser because it not only it had the privacy in terms of the lack of tracking but it also, as a search engine, it didn't have the tilt towards retail that Google tended to get. And, because that's what they wanted people to do on the internet, is buy stuff. And so I used DuckDuckGo for a number of years, but then when passkeys came along, I realized that, Safari is really the best one for passkeys. And it's one of those technologies where we're hoping that 2026 will be the year of the passkey, right? We've been hoping that every year, and for wider adoption, because they're so much easier to use than passwords. But so I switched back, but I kept DuckDuckGo as my search engine, which you can do, of course, too, is select which search engine you're going to use. And that seemed to be a good winning strategy for me. But I also keep Firefox around because, for some weird reason, my credit union does not like Safari. And there's certain operations in there, like depositing a check. It doesn't work in Safari, but it does work in Firefox. Go figure.
I think we're going to jump back to Bob in a minute, but I have problems sometimes with certain browsers switching to use them. Now, primarily it's because I'm running betas on a lot of stuff, and I think that might be the problem. But Chrome has notoriously been buggy for me when I'm running betas. There are all sorts of other problems with Chrome. I'm curious to find out more about what other people are using. Bob, why don't we go to you? You were first on the list until the power went out.
Well, Safari is my primary browser. And However, I do have Firefox, Chrome, and Opera installed, and I use them for specific tasks. I use Firefox for Bookface, and I use Chrome for editing a GoDaddy website and here. And I use Opera. I use all of them for testing websites of my clients.
Yeah, it's funny. Here, what you're referring to is Ecamm, and Ecamm is pretty much an Apple only well, it is an Apple only product. And the irony is it runs on Chrome, but it doesn't run on Safari. So yeah, there are certain things that we get tied to with our certain browsers and make choices around that. Peter?
Yeah, I use Safari for 90% of my browsing for several reasons, and all of my reasons are primarily the way it integrates into the Apple ecosystem. Uh, for occasions when Safari runs into snags, I use Chrome for the most part, although I also have Firefox, Edge, Arc, Dia, and Lynx sort of instantly available. A quick list of the ecosystem advantages that have convinced me are speed and battery efficiency. I mean, Apple knows the internals of the M chips, and they're going to make the best use of them of anyone. Tracking prevention, which some other browsers also do, but Apple is a company committed to privacy. Uh, Sandboxing of each tab, I realize that's kind of an old thing, and when I looked, everybody's sandboxing the tabs so that you don't run into crashing one website affecting something else. I like handoff and continuity. I use an iPad, I use a MacBook, I use an iPhone, and if I have a tab open on one, I can go to the other and instantly open that same tab. The same thing goes with passwords kept in the keychain. They're integrated. They work really well in Safari. If someone sends me a two-factor authentication text, it instantly appears and is available in Safari for inserting. And I think emails are coming with the current new operating system this fall. I like the Apple Pay support. I like all of that integration. So it's the meshing across my devices, which gives Safari the edge, irrespective of the many other features which I mentioned before. That's an ongoing war, and one place leapfrogs another, but they all pretty much copy what's best.
I have tried for years to get on the Safari bus, and I just have a hard time with what I think is a learning curve with Safari. I think the first browser I did was Mozilla, which was the precursor to Firefox. And that was kind of the standard. Well, there was Internet Explorer, but that was really kind of crappy in terms of you were forced to use it and you didn't have options. Yeah, Chris?
Netscape, too. Netscape was in there, too.
So there was, I wound up settling on Chrome because it's integrated with all the Google products, and particularly writing things and co-authoring things and working on projects with other people. Chrome and Google Drive is the best arrangement for that, to be able to get in and work on it and share documents that way. I mean, our show notes are shared through Google Drive, and so for work, it's primarily Chrome. Now, I have been browser shamed by some of my colleagues to say you need to get off Chrome because it's Google and they're getting they have access to all your information, yada, yada, yada. They create products and then the products disappear after about 2 years or a year. They're not necessarily into supporting products or supporting different types of additions that they have to it. If they don't like it or don't want to use it anymore, they drop it. So they're like, get off of Chrome only for information and security purposes and get on Firefox. So I've tried to make the transition to that. In fact, I've set up my default browser as Firefox on my work computer. However, I still have to open Chrome to get into certain things. I'm finding there are things in Firefox that I didn't think I could get into that I can now get into. So the more I can move everything but the Google Drive stuff that I have to do off Chrome, I will. So I can watch baseball on it. I can use Workana on it, which I'll talk about in a bit. A lot of the things that I thought were so Chrome dependent aren't as Chrome dependent, and I'm able to find ways to get through and do a lot of my work function through Firefox. So I'm moving more towards that. I tell you, I try Safari and I just can't figure out what the side tabs are and what I love Chrome. You've got folders, you've got things across the top in terms of the bar, and it's easy to for me it's easier and more intuitive to figure out. Firefox runs with the same sort of interface for me, so that crossover is easier than Safari, a Safari crossover for me. So that's my browser of choice, or my browsers of choice. I'll probably, hopefully, be 10% Chrome and 90% Firefox in a couple of months in terms of getting done what I need to get done. So, guys, question number 2: do you have a favorite browser extension? And we'll start. Bob, you say no yet.
No, I don't. I'm not using any browser extensions at this time, but I am interested in learning about your favorite extensions.
All right.
Part of my reluctance to go there is the fact that I do some work as a consultant, and I really want to run at least Safari as a pretty plain vanilla browser because that's what I see when I'm out in the field.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's cool. Chris.
I used to run extensions when they first came out, but I've sort of gotten away from it. That said, nowadays I land on websites with Safari and it says, please turn off your ad blocker. And I go, oh, okay. Didn't realize I was running one. So they give you instructions for how to do that. And coincidentally, right there is the reader. So if there are too many ads, I just go straight to the reader on a website, which is really a godsend. I'm so glad that Apple did that. I don't know about you guys, but I get tremendously distracted by all the blinky ads on pages and stuff. But I think there are some good ones. I just really haven't found a need for one. I too would be interested to hear what everyone else is running.
Well, since we're talking about browsing alternatives, I'll mention as my favorite browser extension, and I have probably too many favorites, but I'll mention Choosy. Choosy is an extension that makes it easy to quickly switch between alternative browsers. I have plugins or extensions in several browsers that allow me to instantly just go up to the browser bar and switch any page I'm on between Safari, Chrome, Firefox, Edge, and Arc. I want to see a tab in a different browser. I'm two clicks away from doing that. And I also have certain links automatically open in particular browsers. For example, a Google Meet will automatically open in Chrome, and the same is true for Google Docs and Google Sheets and other Google things that work best in Chrome. And I agree with, Marty had said that it was sort of ironic that Ecamm runs better in Chrome than Safari, being a Mac thing. Google has written several apps for the iPad, and in every case, running a Google Doc in the Safari browser on your iPad works way better than using the Google Word app. So I would, if you have been doing the Google app thing on your iPad, I would say try it out in your browser and you will have a refreshed life.
All right, so I'm going to add to the confusion, and I'm going to show some things here for folks, and I'll try and describe it for folks who are listening to it. This was a extension that, and I had a hard time finding when Peter said, "Oh, ask a question about extensions." It's sort of like I have to think about that because I'll have to open my browser and look and see what's up there and what, if any, I am really using in terms of extensions. And of course, this thing came up for me first. It's Workana. And Workana works in Chrome. I have since found out that it also works in Firefox, which helps me with this Chrome to Firefox transition that I'm doing. So there is an extension in Firefox, so I can set up what you'll see here tonight if you're watching the video is how Workana, how I use it as an extension. And every time I tried to go to the general website, what happened was it immediately went into my Workana. So I think I found a way that I can show you, for those that are watching the video, the basics of Workana. There's the ad. Now it doesn't know to go to my own site yet. So this is what it does. It basically creates separate spaces, which would be like windows, if you want to call it, or folders, that you can put all kinds of content in. And in this case, what you're looking at right now has been created with Workana. Across the top here, we have the links that we're going to talk about tonight. We just had the link for Choosy. I've got this Workana link in here. And I've got some of the links that I didn't show, that I forgot to show, about the best browser reviews. So all of these are available. And this became important to me because when I switched to Ecamm for delivering this, I wanted to say, we can't just have a video of 5 guys or 4 guys talking and their heads and mouths moving. We need to have some other content that's part of it that people can see if they're going to watch the video. So that's where Workana comes in. It allows me to make these tab switches, and then I switch the camera to that particular monitor that it's on. This is what the back door looks like. What you can see here is I've got all of the tabs laid out in order as we have them in the show notes. And then finally, I have the show notes down at the bottom. But over on the left, you can see that I have OMG 7-30-25. That's the space that contains all of these links. That's the show. So if I want to, I can go into my archive, and you can see in the left column all of the shows that I've created. So when it's done, I have all of these links for the shows put into archives. I can go back and get those links if I want to, or I can search the archive if I want to do that. So Workana sets up these tabs. I can just open all tabs. Well, I can close all tabs, so all the tabs are gone across the top. And then I can open all tabs, and there they are in the particular order that I had set them up with. So that's my suggestion for the extension that I use the most. Every time I open up Chrome, it essentially opens up to a Workana platform. And then if I want to open up another page, I just click on the plus and go where I'm going to go with it. But I can do now the same thing as I said with Firefox. So that's my browser extension that organizes shows and tabs for shows and content that I want to go to. I mean, you can do this in a lot of ways. You can also do it on Safari, I'm sure. Or you can create a folder in Firefox and have them all in the order that you want them. This just lays them out in the order that I want across the top, and I can jump from tab to tab with that. So that's question 2. Question 3, any other browser extensions? And Bob says no, so I'm going to jump to Chris.
I can't really think of any. I will say, though, since I have the mic here, that Workana looks pretty cool. It looks like, sort of tab groups on Safari, but on steroids, taken to a third dimension, if you will. So that looks like people who work on a project level, or like the way you put the show together tonight in there and all the previous shows, and going back and accessing them. That's I could see that being very useful.
With anybody in the group. And I guess it would, I don't know. I've never shared it with myself, but if I shared it with a link with you, it would have you probably open up a Workana tab in your browser, and you would be able to have the same access of the same things in order. I can also set you up as editors. So if you wanted to move things around or add tabs in, you could do that directly on this particular space. So it's kind of neat. Peter.
Yeah, I've got two quick ones, but before I get to them, let me just say one thing to Bob. If you decide to go extension crazy like me, you can just open settings extensions in Safari and click through whatever ones you have installed and disable them and have a vanilla browser in a matter of seconds. And if you want to create a shortcut that just does that for you, you could also do that. The two quick ones I want to mention are called Keyword Search and Wiper. Keyword search, you can quickly redirect searches entered in your browser bar, not to your default search engine, but somewhere else using a brief keyword prefix. Places that I search instead of Google quite often include Wikipedia, YouTube, the Oxford English Dictionary, DuckDuckGo, which Chris mentioned, Just Watch, where I can look up where a movie is streaming, All Recipes, which probably would interest Marty, who's a great cook, All Music, Amazon, the Wayback Machine for historic versions of websites and web pages. What I'm getting at is a wide search is often not my goal. I'm looking for a narrow expert search, and keyword search lets one easily choose the expert you want. Wiper is an ad blocker. It just happens to be the one I'm using. I'm not necessarily sure that it's the best, but it's certainly adequate. I consider an ad blocker table stakes for an awful lot of sites. So many are just unreadable without an ad blocker, and can, because of the overwhelming distractions which Chris mentioned, and which can be eliminated using Reader. But if you're on a page with all the article names and you're trying to choose which article you might want to read, it's better not have all the interspersed ads. It's free or near free. I actually have an annual reminder to send Wiper's author $5 because I want to make sure he maintains it because it's been so useful to me.
Yeah, I am going to add to that in terms of ad blocker. And I've mentioned this before. This is my other extension. When I opened up my browser, there it was. And it is Malwarebytes. And Malwarebytes now has a browser guard that goes with it. So it appears up in mine. You can see it up at the top if you're looking really careful. It appears up at the top, or it appears in my extensions. And it will send me warnings of sites that I'm going to. And sites that could be potential problems for people that I might send the site to. So Malwarebytes does a great job for dealing with any type of suspicious or problematic infection or virus or scam. I think it's an essential piece of software to run and have running in the background on your computer because it clears all of that stuff and warns you. What I found interesting with Browser Guard, which is an extension of Malwarebytes, is when I'm putting together shows like this one or other shows like Vision Profiles, lots of news, you start searching for stuff. It looks like a good article, You go to the article web link, and then I get a warning from Malwarebytes that says, this is a suspicious site. They could be phishing, do some phishing stuff on you. We recommend you not go to it. And so that then gets taken off my list of possible, because first of all, I'm not sure I want to go to it. And secondly, I don't want to distribute it to other people to go look at if it's problematic or could be problematic. So that was my second recommendation, which was Malwarebytes and ways in which you can incorporate that in for browser protection. There's a fee to it. Of course, that's how people make a living in our field. They charge for software. And if it's good software, it's worth paying developers for doing it. So that gets us through our 3 questions tonight. Any other comments or ideas that you'd all like to share?
Marty, I'm just curious, which plan do you use with Malwarebytes? I've always used it for free, but maybe it's a good idea to finally pay for it. Marty?
Or the additional charge for the VPN. I think I have the Plus plan because I know I can switch on Malwarebytes VPN if I want to. I don't think I paid for the Ultimate, which is $120 a year. So $59 a year or $45 a year is the standard plan. I think the last time I didn't pay for Malwarebytes, I think I got 3 searches before it said, or scans before it said, okay, we can't fix it for you anymore. You got to pay for it if you want us to fix it or clean it up. We'll identify it for you, but we won't clean it. And since then, it's been such a valuable addition for protection on the Mac that it's just part of running the business as far as I'm concerned. Any other comments? Well, we can wrap the show then. Email us at thepodtalknetwork@gmail.com. Your feedback helps us and helps us get programming correct for you, and helps us get the kinds of things that age-seasoned Mac users want to know about. So give us some feedback. It makes our lives more enjoyable too when we get email from you. thepodtalknetwork@gmail.com. Our website is thepodtalk.net. That's thepodtalk.net. And you can find out about this show and other shows that we do. And so let's wrap it up for this episode then. Check those out, and maybe there's some other stuff that you're interested in that we do on thepodtalk.net, or check out some of our past episodes. Our next live episode will be on Wednesday, August 6th at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time through YouTube, where you can watch this crew at youtube.com/@oldmacgang. You can always pick up the podcast or video later if you missed the live show. Share with us, please share us with your friends and with Mac user groups if you're part of a Mac user group, because I think we speak to that group very well too. Our music bed is by Philip Gross, Marrakesh, courtesy of the Free Music Archive, part of the Creative Commons. For more information about this podcast and other ones, you can find it at thepodtalk.net. Thanks to the group, Chris, Peter, and Bob. Gary has got relatives in town and begged out tonight to spend some time with his son and daughter from different parts of the country who come in for this week. So, Gary, we'll see you next time. And thank you for being part of the Old Mac Gang. We'll see you next time.